Hello and welcome back to Poison Break, Toxic Tales at Work. Have you ever had that feeling at work where something just felt extremely off, but you couldn't really fully explain it or name it? And when you walked into a meeting, you already felt tense and you replayed conversations in your head afterwards. You started questioning things you used to be confident about. And at some point, maybe you catch yourself thinking, it's me, I'm the problem, there's something wrong with me, But what if it's not? Today, I want to talk about something that doesn't get named often enough. It's workplace bullying. Because the truth is, bullying at work doesn't always look the way we expect it to. And it's not always loud. It's not always obvious. And it's unfortunately also not always taken seriously. That's for sure. Sometimes it's very subtle. It's very repetitive and quiet. That's also why it's so hard to name what's going on or to see it for what it is right away. And that's also exactly the reason why it's so damaging at the end of the day. So when we think about bullying, we often imagine extreme situations like someone yelling or openly insulting others or behaving aggressively. This is also bullying, obviously, but in reality, workplace bullying is often much more controlled than that. It can look like being constantly interrupted or dismissed, for example, like your ideas being ignored until someone else says the same thing. And it can also look like being excluded from conversations or decisions that directly involve your work. If you have ever experienced this, you might already think about a situation where this happened, or you might exactly know what it feels like to realize that you've been left out, you've been excluded from conversations and decisions. And it can be the tone someone uses with you that's just slightly different than with everyone else. The kind of difference that's hard to prove, but impossible not to feel. And the key thing here is repetition. So it's not just one bad day or one awkward interaction. It's a pattern. And it's a pattern that slowly makes you feel smaller, less confident, and more unsure of yourself. So the hardest part about this is that you often don't realize what's happening while you're in it. Because instead of thinking this is bullying, you start thinking you're too sensitive, or that you might have misunderstood something, or that you maybe don't try hard enough. Especially when you're at a new job, you would first question yourself and, search for the problem in you before you really think that it could be something else, like your boss, your colleagues, whoever, or the workplace in itself being toxic. That shift where you stop trusting your own perception, that's where it really starts to take hold. I personally have experienced situations where things didn't feel right for a long time before I could actually name them. At first it was small things like really unnecessary comments, or reactions that felt slightly off, situations where I felt singled out, but I couldn't really explain why. I also had a manager just kind of ignoring me in a way, like I was present in a meeting, for example, but it felt like to her I wasn't really there, which was very awkward. And it kept me questioning not just myself, but everything. It was extremely weird. I just kept, in the beginning, I kept brushing it off a bit, but then it became a pattern. And the pattern started affecting how I showed up, not just at work, but in general. I became much more careful, more quiet, also more self-critical. That's the thing about this kind of environment. It doesn't just stay at work, it follows you. There's also a reason why this kind of behavior is so hard to call out, because it often overlaps with things we've already talked about before, like gaslighting, subtle control, toxic power dynamics. If someone consistently questions your perception, dismisses your concerns, or reframes situations in a way that make you doubt yourself, you don't just feel uncomfortable, you feel confused. It's an extreme confusion and even paranoia at one point. When you're confused, you're less likely to speak up as well. That's a really important part here. And also an important piece of this is that workplace bullying often isn't about something you did. It can be about dynamics, It can be about someone feeling threatened by you, someone needing control, or simply operating in an environment where this behavior is normalized and never challenged. And unfortunately, in some workplaces, as long as someone is seen as valuable or high performing, quote unquote, their behavior gets overlooked. And this sends a very clear message. Results matter more than how people are treated. So what you can actually do if you find yourself in a situation like this is, I want to keep this simple, because when you're already overwhelmed, the last thing you need is a long list. So first, start paying attention to patterns. Not every single detail, but patterns. And you will recognize them. How often does something happen? In what situations? With which people? In which setting? Sometimes just seeing it clearly, even for yourself, can be incredibly grounding. It just makes you see things more clear. Second, a reality check. Reality check your experience with someone you trust, because bullying thrives in isolation. I really have to repeat that. Bullying thrives in isolation. When things stay in your head, they grow and they get distorted. So when you say them out loud to someone safe, you often hear it differently. And obviously they can also say their part to it. And third is, this one is very important. Start creating a bit of emotional distance. I know this is so hard, but that doesn't mean you don't care. It means you stop internalizing everything. And not every comment deserves access to your self-worth. Definitely not. And not every situation deserves over-analysis. I'm convinced anyway that we all kind of play a role in the workplace, to be honest with you. I see it as a game sometimes even. Like we all have our work persona. We are kind of even playing a role I always see it as a role in a theater, in a movie, whatever. I play my part and I go home, and then there's my private life. And this is what I'm living for. So this is how I would suggest you to kind of separate work from your private life, especially in this situation, because otherwise you will just get sucked in. And sometimes protecting yourself starts with just quietly stepping back internally. And you have to do that anyway, if you are in an environment like this, you need to do that. It's very important for your mental health. And I want to say this clearly. If your work environment is making you feel small, anxious, or constantly on edge, that is not something you just have to accept. It's not normal, and it's not just how it is. It's definitely also not a reflection of your value. Please remember that. Work is supposed to challenge you at times. Yes, that's normal, but it's not supposed to slowly break you down. No. Definitely not. So if you've been questioning yourself lately, and if you've been feeling like you are the problem, maybe it's time to gently consider another possibility, because the environment you're in is definitely the problem in this case. You're allowed to see that. You are allowed to take that seriously, and you should definitely act on it. Also, I say this in almost all of my episodes, depends, but document everything. It's just super important for yourself to recognize patterns, but also afterwards, if you file a complaint, for example, documentation is super important, and just do it for yourself. At the end of the day, your mental health is the most important, and just make sure to pay a bit more attention to what is happening, and to also question other people. Even if you're really new at your job, you kind of know, your gut feeling tells you what is, like, if there's something really off, if people are empathetic or not. You can tell that usually. If you have a hard time doing that, I totally understand, especially when you're new at a job, or if you are the type of person who's really taking on a lot of responsibility and always wants other people to feel good. Usually those personalities are the target of workplace bullying. But also if you're a high performer, like I mentioned before, it's threatening to a lot of people in work, toxic colleagues and managers especially. So make sure to document everything. And also, I want to mention at this point, you're not alone. Again, I started this podcast because I want people to know that they are not alone in those situations. I want people to feel heard and seen, and just know that those things, unfortunately, happen a lot, and just that you're not crazy, it's just important for me to tell you, you are not crazy, and you will get out of this. If you've experienced this, you know what it is, the aftermath, how to get over it. I will go into this also in my other episodes, in my upcoming episodes, but also if you're in it right now, make sure to protect yourself as much as you can. And it's just, to help people at the end of the day. This is why I'm doing this, and for you to not feel alone, basically. This is really, really important to me. Like, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. And yeah, stay sane, stay strong, like I say every time. Thank you also for the people who are listening to my podcast right now. It means a lot to me. A lot. You have no idea how much this means to me, and I hope I can help someone out there. And yeah, protect yourself. Like I said, if you have any suggestions or if you wanna talk about your experiences, please let me know. And yeah, have a nice day. Bye bye. Till next time.